microphone's on, actually. I should probably check that. Yeah, we're on. Okay, we're live. Yippee! Yippee! We're live. Like I said I would be. I was planning on going live earlier and playing some Silk Song, but I was busy. I got caught up in other stuff. We're here, we got the camera on.
Enough!
Come here. We're opening today. What day is it today? 15th?
Time got alive.
Yeah, it is the 15th. That's 15. What?
Why, you're not even signed into your own chat?
Huh? Oh, oh! Well, he's different. He's kind of like... He's kind of got like blue. He's kind of... Oh, no, he's green! Doesn't really show up well on that camera, but he's green. Oh, he's kind of... He's snot coloured.
I like it.
He's snot coloured and with blue writing.
Yeah, I don't think the blue writing goes.
Yeah. What does it say in the calendar though? Insight check. Are those jingle bells cursed? Might be. You got a 3. You got ass luck. Oh my god, it's meant to be! Fucking hell.
No, that was...
Yeah, well, it would have fallen off and it wouldn't count it anyway. Oh my goodness, your luck is shit. Oh, there we go. What? Hi Dennis. Jesus no Silk Song. Womp womp.
No,
Womp womp.
because it's his decision.
No, I was working on I
12.
was working on a placeholder Christmas present for one of my work colleagues. I just did like a little horse thingy, but I want to do like an actual like 3D shaped one, like a proper one. So I just did that for now, like in like an hour.
You didn't rage quit, you played
And
it.
and yeah, so I'm giving that to one of my colleagues at work tomorrow. I just gotta wait for the paint to dry.
Look at these.
Oh, they're adorable.
I might do it with some leftover yarn.
They're stupendous. I love them.
But look,
Right.
he sits in the egg and then you can open him.
Egg. That's so
And
cute.
then you open it and he's there.
That's awesome. Why rolling dice? I have a dice advent calendar for Christmas, so I thought I'd share and open today's one on stream, same as yesterday. And you know what? I'm gonna light the candle as well.
Let me try and find the video of him.
Boom! Oh my god! Look, there's 2 flames. Oh my goodness, that's high.
Look.
There we go. Aw, he's... Oh my goodness, he's tiny.
Yeah.
My goodness, what a small little fella.
You might end up with
What a fancy fella.
perhaps not for Christmas though.
Oh, well that's
Not
okay.
for Christmas.
I like the big ones anyway. That cost you loads, but are massive. Huge ass dinosaurs. That's me, man, with my candle, with my D&D candle, my cucumber and mint candle, which has metal dice in it, which I need to melt all the way to the bottom to get to the dice. It's got glitter as well. Doesn't show it well on the camera because obviously, you know, but you know, very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Right. Are you joining? Are you hopping in chat?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Alright. Alright, that's it. Camera off.
Bye.
Bye-bye, camera on. That's the name of the camera. That's the name of desk cam. Camera on. And then the microphone is Big Mike. We got the cup of tea. We got our candle. Reading by candlelight is always very aesthetic and very fun. I might try and get some like big like candlesticks or something. I think that'd be really fun. Just to have on my desk. No one else can see it. Just for me. Just for me, bro. Anyway, I might do some Silk Song after today's reading. I don't know. It depends how I feel. If I can be asked. I did actually play quite a bit last night on my own. I played quite a lot, and I had a great time. So, yeah. Anyway, the book. So, we read 3 chapters, I want to say, last time. Last time, yeah? Yeah. No? No, yeah, we read 3 chapters, yeah. I can remember. We read chapter 16, 17, and 18. A sluggish memory, birthday surprise, and... No, we... Huh? Yeah, a very frosty Christmas, a sluggish memory, and birthday surprises. Now we're on chapter 19, Elf Tales. Stupendous confectionery. Never take another man's bonbons. Oh, I should probably... My bookmark was very close to the open flame then. Buongiorno. Okay. Put my phone over there. I'm trying to figure out a comfortable seating position right now. I'm trying to get myself... Ow. Having to bend my ankle for that one, which hurt. Very hurt. No, okay, not cross-legged. Cross-legged ain't the vibe today. Really trying to figure out a good seating position here. Okay. Right. So, shall we just get into it? Shall we just jump straight in? 10 minutes in, no yap. Then no one can complain then, can they? Alright. Chapter 19. Well, actually, what happened last time? That's a good question. What did happen last time? Christmas happened, and the minister ended up beefing with Harry. It was very awesome. A sluggish memory. Dumbledore was basically like, "Yo, Harry, can you get me the rest of this memory from Slughorn because it's been tampered with?" Something about Horcruxes. Hermione's pissy. Ron's slightly pissy. Then birthday surprises. It was Ron's birthday, and he ate the chocolates that Harry was given ages ago that was spiked with a love potion, and I think he basically died at the end of at the end of last chapter. He OD'd or something. I don't know. It just said he just like fell silent and was no longer spasming. So I don't know. Anyway, chapter 19, Elf Tales. So all in all, not one of Ron's better birthdays, said Fred. It was evening. The hospital wing was quiet, the windows curtained and lamps lit. Ron was the only occupied bed. Harry, Hermione and Ginny were sitting around him. They'd spent all day waiting outside the double doors, trying to see inside whenever somebody went in or out. Madame Pomfrey had only let them enter at 8 o'clock. Fred and George had arrived at 10 past. This is how we imagined handing over our present, said George grimly, putting down a large wrapped gift on Ron's bedside cabinet and sitting beside Ginny. Yeah, when we pictured the scene, he was conscious, said Fred. There we were in Hogsmeade, waiting to surprise him, said George. You were in Hogsmeade? Asked Ginny, looking up. We were thinking of buying Zonkoses, said Fred gloomily. A Hogsmeade branch, you know? But a fat lot of good it'll do if you lot aren't allowed out at weekends to buy stuff anymore. But never mind that now. He drew up a chair beside Harry and looked at Ron's pale face. How exactly did it happen, Harry? Harry retold the story he had already recounted what felt like 100 times to Dumbledore, to McGonagall, to Madame Pomfrey, to Hermione and to Ginny. And then I got the bees all down his throat and his breathing eased up a bit. Slughorn ran for help. McGonagall and Madame Pomfrey turned up and they brought Ron up here. They reckon he'll be alright. Madame Pomfrey says he'll have to stay here a week or so. Keep taking essence of Rue. Blimey. It was lucky you thought of a Bezoar, said George in a low voice. Lucky there was one in the room, said Harry, who kept turning cold at the thought of what would happen if he had not been able to lay hands on the little stone. Hermione gave an almost inaudible sniff. She had been exceptionally quiet all day, having hurtled white-faced up to Harry outside the hospital wing and demanding to know what had happened. She had taken almost no part in Harry and Ginny's obsessive discussion about how Ron had been poisoned, but merely stood beside them, clenched-jawed and frightened-looking, until at last they had been allowed in to see him. "Do Mum and Dad know?" Fred asked Ginny. "They've already seen him. They arrived an hour ago. They're in Dumbledore's office now, but they'll be back soon." There was a pause, while they all watched Ron mumble a little in his sleep. "So the poison was in the drink," said Fred quietly. "Yeah," said Harry at once. He could think of nothing else and was glad for the opportunity to start discussing it again. Slughorn poured it out. "Would he have been able to slip something into Ron's glass without you seeing it?" "Probably," said Harry. "But why would Slughorn want to poison Ron?" "Hi, Ty, how you doing, dude?" "No idea," said Fred, frowning. "You don't think he could have mixed up the glasses by mistake, meaning to get you?" "Why would Slughorn want to poison Harry?" asked Ginny. "I don't know," said Fred. "But there must be loads of people who'd like to poison Harry, mustn't there? The Chosen One and all that." "So you think Slughorn's a Death Eater?" said Ginny. "Anything's possible," said Fred darkly. "He could be under the Imperius curse," said George. "Or he could be innocent," said Ginny. "The poison could have been in the bottle, in which case it was probably meant for Slughorn himself." "Who'd want to kill Slughorn?" "Dumbledore reckons Voldemort wanted Slughorn on his side," said Harry. "Slughorn was in hiding for years before he came to Hogwarts, and..." The thought of the memory Dumbledore had not been able to extract from Slughorn. "And maybe Voldemort wants him out of the way because he thinks he could be valuable to Dumbledore." "But you said Slughorn had been planning to give you the bottle... had been planning to give that bottle to Dumbledore for Christmas," Ginny reminded him. "So the poisoner could just as easily have been after Dumbledore." "Then the poisoner didn't know Slughorn very well, did they?" said Hermione, speaking up for the first time in hours and sounding as though she had a bad head cold. "Anyone who knew Slughorn would have known there was a good chance he'd keep something that tasty for himself." "Hermione," croaked Ron unexpectedly from between them. They all fell silent, watching him anxiously, but after muttering incomprehensibly for a moment, he merely started snoring. The dormitory doors opened, making them all jump. Hagrid came striding towards them, his hair rain-flecked, his bearskin coat flapping behind him, a crossbow in his hand, leaving a trail of muddy dolphin-sized footprints all over the floor. Oh, fucking big-ass toes, isn't it? Big-ass feet! Hagrid got them stompers, them brick shoes. "Been in the forest all day," he panted. "Aragog's worse, I've been reading to him. Didn't get up till dinner till just now, and then Professor Sprout told me about Ron. How is he?" "Not bad," said Harry. "They say he'll be okay." "No more than 6 visitors at a time," said Madame Pomfrey, hurrying out of her office. "Hagrid makes 6," George pointed out. "Oh, yes," said Madame Pomfrey, who seemed to have been counting Hagrid as several people due to his vastness. To cover her confusion, she hurried off to clear up his muddy footprints with her wand. "I don't believe this," said Hagrid hoarsely, shaking his great shaggy head as he stared down at Ron. "Just don't believe it. Look at him lying there. Who'd want to hurt him, eh?" "That's just what we were discussing," said Harry. "We don't know." Someone couldn't have a grudge against the Gryffindor Quidditch team, could they?" said Hagrid anxiously. "First Katie, now Ron." "I can't see anyone trying to bump off a Quidditch team," said George. "Wood might have done the Slytherins if he could have got away with it," said Fred fairly. "Well, I don't think it's Quidditch, but I think there's a connection between the 2 attacks," said Hermione quietly. "How'd you work that out?" "Well, for one thing, they both ought to have been fatal and weren't, although that was just pure luck. And for another, neither the poison nor the necklace seemed to have reached the person who was supposed to be killed. Of course," she added broodingly, "that makes the person behind this even more dangerous in a way, because they don't seem to care how many people they finish off before they actually reach their victim." Before anyone could respond to this ominous pronouncement, the dormitory doors opened again, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley hurried up the ward. They'd done no more than satisfy themselves that Ron would make a full recovery on their last visit to the ward. Now Mrs. Weasley seized hold of Harry and hugged him very tightly. "Dumbledore told us how you saved him with the Bezoar," she sobbed. "Oh, Harry, what can we say? You saved Ginny, you saved Arthur, now you've saved Ron." Don't be. I didn't," muttered Harry awkwardly. "Half our family does seem to owe you their lives, now I stop and think about it," Mr. Weasley said in a constricted voice. "Well, all I can say is that it was a lucky day for the Weasleys when Ron decided to sit in your compartment on the Hogwarts Express, Harry." Harry could not think of any reply to this, and was almost glad when Madame Pomfrey reminded them again that there were only supposed to be 6 visitors around Ron's bed. He and Hermione rose at once to leave, and Hagrid decided to go with them, leaving Ron with his family. "It's terrible," growled Hagrid into his beard as the 3 of them walked back along the corridor to the marble staircase. "All the security and kids are still getting hurt. Dumbledore's worried sick. He don't say much, but I can tell." "Has he got any ideas, Hagrid?" asked Hermione desperately. "I expect he's got hundreds of ideas, brain like his," said Hagrid staunchly. "But he doesn't know who sent that necklace, nor who put the poison in that wine. Or they'd been caught, wouldn't they? What worries me," said Hagrid, lowering his voice and glancing over his shoulder. Harry, for good measure, checked the ceiling for Peeves. "Is how long Hogwarts can stay open if kids are being attacked. Chamber of Secrets all over again, innit? There'll be panic, more parents taking their kids out of school, and next thing you know, the Board of Governors..." Hagrid stopped talking as the ghost of a long-haired woman drifted serenely past, then resumed in a hoarse whisper. "The Board of Governors will be talking about shutting us up for good." "Surely not," said Hermione, looking worried. "Gotta see it from their point of view," said Hagrid heavily. "I mean, it's always been a bit of a risk sending kids to Hogwarts, hasn't it? You're expecting accidents, don't you? With hundreds of underage wizards all locked up together. But attempted murder, that's different. It's no wonder Dumbledore's angry with Snape." Hagrid stopped in his tracks, a familiar guilty expression on what was visible of his face above his tangled black beard. "What?" said Harry quickly. "Dumbledore's angry with Snape?" "I shouldn't have said that," said Hagrid, though his look of panic could not have been a bigger giveaway. "Look at the time, it's getting on. It's nearly midnight. I need to, Hagrid, why is Dumbledore angry with Snape?" Harry asked loudly. "Shh!" said Hagrid, looking both nervous and angry. "Don't shout stuff like that, Harry. Do you want me to lose my job? Mind, I don't suppose you'd care, would you, now that you've given up care of magic?" "Don't try and make me feel guilty, it won't work," said Harry forcefully. "What's Snape done?" "I don't know, Harry. I shouldn't have heard it at all. I was coming out of the forest the other evening and I overheard him talking. Well, arguing. Didn't like to draw attention to myself, so I sort of sulked and tried not to listen, but it was all, well, a heated discussion and it wasn't exactly easy to block out." "Well?" Harry urged him, as Hagrid shuffled his enormous feet uneasily. "Well, I just heard Snape saying Dumbledore took too much for granted and maybe he, Snape, didn't want to do it anymore." "Do what?" "I don't know, Harry. Sounded like Snape was feeling a bit overworked, that's all. Anyway, Dumbledore told him flat out he'd agreed to do it and that there was no way to it. Pretty firm with him. And then he said something about Snape making investigations in his house in Slytherin. Well, there's nothing strange about that," Hagrid added hastily, as Harry and Hermione exchanged looks full of meaning. "All the heads of house were asked to look into that necklace business." "Yeah, but Dumbledore's not having rows with the rest of them, is he?" said Harry. "Look." Hagrid twisted his crossbow uncomfortably in his hands. There was a loud splintering sound as it snapped in two. "I know what you like about Snape, Harry, and I don't want you to go reading more into this than there actually is." "Look out," said Hermione tersely. They turned just in time to see the shadow of Argus Filch looming over the wall behind them before the man himself turned the corridor, hunchbacked, his jowls a-quiver. "Oh," he wheezed. "Out of bed so late. This'll mean detention." "No, it won't, Filch," said Hagrid shortly. "They're with me, aren't they?" "What difference does it make?" asked Filch obnoxiously. I'm a ruddy teacher, aren't I? You sneaking squib, said Hagrid, firing up at once. There was a nasty hissing noise as Filch swelled with fury. Mrs. Norris had arrived, unseen, and was twisting herself sinuously around Filch's skinny ankles. Get going, said Hagrid out of the corner of his mouth. Harry did not need telling twice. He and Hermione both hurried off, Hagrid and Filch's raised voice echoing behind them as they ran. They passed Peeves near the turning into Gryffindor Tower, but he was sneaking happily towards the source of the yelling, cackling, and calling. When there's strife and when there's trouble, call on Peevesy, he'll make double. The fat lady was snoozing and not pleased to be awoken, but swung forwards grumpily to allow them to clamber into the mercifully peaceful and empty common room. It did not seem that people knew about Ron yet. Harry was very relieved. He had been interrogated enough that day. Hermione bade him good night and set off for the girls' dormitory. Harry, however, remained behind, taking a seat beside the fire and looking down into the dying embers. Damn, the trailer for Volume 2 of Stranger Things just released. Already? That was fast. So, Dumbledore had argued with Snape. In spite of all he had told Harry, in spite of his insistence that he trusted Snape completely, he had lost his temper with him. He did not think that Snape had tried hard enough to investigate the Slytherins, or perhaps to investigate a single Slytherin. Malfoy? Was it because Dumbledore did not want Harry to do anything foolish, to take matters into his own hand, that he had pretended there was nothing in Harry's suspicions? That seemed likely. It might even be that Dumbledore did not want anything to distract Harry from their lessons, or from procuring that memory from Slughorn. Perhaps Dumbledore did not think it right to confide suspicions about his staff to 16-year-olds. There you are, Potter. Harry jumped to his feet in shock, his wand at the ready. He had been quite convinced that the common room was empty. He had not been at all prepared for a hulking figure to rise. Suddenly, out of a distant chair, a closer look showed him that it was Cormac McLaggen. I've been waiting for you to come back, said McLaggen, disregarding Harry's drawn wand. Must have fallen asleep. Look, I saw them taking Weasley up to the hospital wing earlier. Didn't look like he'll be fit for next week's match. It took Harry a few moments to realise what McLaggen was talking about. Oh, right. Quidditch, he said, putting his wand back into the belt of his jeans and running a hand wearily through his hair. Yeah, he might not make it. Well then, I'll be playing keeper, won't I? Said McLaggen. Yeah, said Harry. Yeah, I suppose so. He could not think of an argument against it. After all, McLaggen had certainly performed second best in the trials. Excellent, said McLaggen in a satisfied voice. So, when's practice? What? Oh, there's one tomorrow evening. Good. Listen, Potter, we should have a talk beforehand. I've got some ideas on strategy you might find useful. Right, said Harry unenthusiastically. Well, I'll hear them tomorrow then. I'm pretty tired now. See you. The news that Ron had been poisoned spread quickly next day, but it did not cause the sensation that Katie's attack had done. People seemed to think that it might have been an accident, given that he had been in a potion master's room at the time, and that he had been given an antidote immediately. There was no real harm done. In fact, the Gryffindors were generally much more interested in the upcoming Quidditch match against Hufflepuff, for many of them wanted to see Zachariah Smith, who played Chaser on the Hufflepuff team, punished soundly for his commentary during the opening match against Slytherin. Harry, however, had never been less interested in Quidditch. He was rapidly becoming obsessed with Draco Malfoy. Hey, just like some fucking Potterheads out there. Just like some proper fans of this series. Still checking the Marauders map whenever he got a chance. He sometimes made detours to wherever Malfoy happened to be. But he had not yet detected him doing anything out of the ordinary. And still, there were those inexplicable times when Malfoy simply vanished from the map. But Harry did not get a long time to consider the problem. What with Quidditch practice, homework, and the fact that he was now being dogged wherever he went by Cormac McLaggen and Lavender Brown. I've not got a clear mind to be reading right now. My goodness. I can feel my nose blocking up. And fucking everything. You wouldn't think a fucking stuffy nose would really distract you from reading too much, but my goodness, when you're reading out loud, it really does. It really does get to you. My goodness. He could not decide which of them was more annoying. McLagan kept up a constant stream of hints that he would make a better permanent keeper of the team than Ron, and that now Harry was seeing him play regularly, he would surely come around to this way of thinking. 2. He was also keen to criticise the other players and provide Harry with detailed training schemes, so that more than once Harry was forced to remind him who was captain. Meanwhile, Lavender kept sidling up to Harry to discuss Ron, which Harry found almost more wearing than McLagan's Quidditch lectures. At first, Lavender had been very annoyed that nobody had thought to tell her that Ron was in the hospital wing. But unfortunately, she had now decided to forgive Harry this lapse of memory and was keen to have lots of in-depth chats with him about Ron's feelings and the most uncomfortable experience that Harry would have happily forgotten. Look, why don't you talk to Ron about all this? Harry asked after a particularly long interrogation from Lavender that took in everything from precisely what Ron had said about her new dress robes to whether or not Harry thought that Ron considered his relationship with Lavender to be serious. Well, I would. He's always asleep when I go and see him, said Lavender fretfully. Is he? Said Harry, surprised, for he had found Ron perfectly alert every time he had been up to the hospital wing, both highly interested in the news of Dumbledore and Snape's row, and keen to abuse McLagan as much as possible. Is Hermione Granger still visiting him? Lavender demanded suddenly. Yeah, I think so. Well, they are friends, aren't they? Said Harry uncomfortably. Friends? Don't make me laugh, said Lavender scornfully. She didn't talk to him for weeks after he started going out with me. But I suppose she wants to make it up to him now he's all interesting. Would you call getting poisoned being interesting? Asked Harry. Anyway, sorry, I got to go. There's McLagan coming for a talk about Quidditch, said Harry hurriedly. And he dashed sideways through a door, pretending to be solid wall, and sprinted down the shortcut that would take him off to the potions, where, thankfully, neither Lavender nor McLagan could follow him. I'm struggling right now. I'm really fucking struggling to read right now. On the morning of the Quidditch match against Hufflepuff, Harry dropped in on the hospital wing before heading down to the pitch. Ron was very agitated. Madame Pomfrey would not let him go down to watch the match, feeling it would overexcite him. So, how's McLagan shaping up? He asked Harry nervously, apparently forgetting that he had already asked the same question twice. I've told you, said Harry patiently. He could be world class and I wouldn't want to keep him. He keeps trying to tell everyone what to do. He thinks he could play every position better than the rest of us. Can't wait to be shot of him. And speaking of getting shot of people, Harry added, getting to his feet and picking up his firebolt. We should stop pretending to be asleep when Lavender comes to see you. She's driving me mad as well. Oh, said Ron, looking sheepish. Yeah, all right. If you don't want to go out with her anymore, just tell her, said Harry. Yeah, well, it's just not that easy, is it? Said Ron. He paused. Hermione going to look in before the match? He added casually. No, she's already gone down to the pitch with Ginny. Oh, said Ron, looking rather glum. Right, well, good luck. Hope you hammer Smith. I'll try, said Harry, shouldering his broom. See you after the match. He hurried down through the deserted corridors. The whole school was outside, either already seated in the stadium or heading down towards it. There's a sneeze coming. Ah, you know when a sneeze builds up and then fucks off? Oh my god, so annoying. He was looking out the windows as he passed, trying to gauge how much wind they were facing, when a noise ahead made him glance up, and he saw Malfoy walking towards him, accompanied by two girls, both of whom looked sulky and resentful. Malfoy stopped short at the sight of Potter, then gave a short, humourless laugh and continued walking. Where are you going? Harry demanded. Yeah, I'm really going to tell you because it's your business, Potter, sneered Malfoy. You'd better hurry up. They'll be waiting for the chosen captain, the boy who scored, whatever they call you these days. One of the girls gave an unwilling giggle. Harry stared at her. She blushed. Malfoy pushed past Harry, and she and her friends followed at a trot, turning the corner and vanishing from view. Fuck me, I'm really struggling today. Oh, Hi, Avenger. How you doing? Welcome back. Making sandwiches? Depends what's on them. What's on them? What's on the sandwiches? Lavender is the correct amount of clingy, you know. Absolutely not. Jesus Christ. She's terrible. Harry stood rooted on the spot and watched them disappear. This was infuriating. He was already cutting it fine to get to the match on time, and yet there was Malfoy, shulking off while the rest of the school was absent. Harry's best chance yet of discovering what Malfoy was up to. The silent seconds trickled past, and Harry remained where he was, frozen, gazing at the place where Malfoy had vanished. "Where have you been?" demanded Ginny as Harry sprinted into the changing room. The whole team was changed and ready. Coot and Peakes, the beaters, were both hitting their clubs nervously against their legs. "I met Malfoy," he told her quietly, as he pulled his scarlet robes over his head. So? So I wanted to know how come he's up in the castle with a couple of girlfriends while everyone else is down here. Does it matter right now? Well, I'm not likely to find out now, am I? Said Harry, seizing his firebolt and pushing his glasses straight. Come on then. And without another word, he marched out onto the pitch to deafening cheers and boos. There was little wind, the clouds were patchy, and every now and then there was dazzling flashes of bright sunlight. Tricky conditions, McLaggen said bracingly to the team. Coot, Peakes, you want to fly out of the sun, so they don't see you coming. I'm the captain, McLaggen. Shut up and stop giving them instructions, said Harry. Just get up by the goalposts. Once McLaggen had marched off, Harry turned to Coot and Peakes. Make sure you do fly out of the sun, he told them grudgingly. He shook hands with the Hufflepuff captain, and then, on Madam Hooch's whistle, kicked off and rose into the air, higher than the rest of his team, streaking around the pitch in search of the snitch. If he could catch it good and early, there might be a chance he could get back up to the castle, seize the Marauders' map, and find out what Malfoy was doing. Onion, tomatoes, cabbage, cheese, mayo, and spices. Ooh, not too big on the tomatoes. Not too big on the tomatoes. That's the only thing that's kind of got me a bit. Remove the tomatoes were good. All right. Well. What do we have here? Well. It's Monday, not Tuesday. Blah. You're early. I don't want to see you till tomorrow. I'm Josh, and how you doing, dude? Ugh. Right. Oh my goodness. Okay, alright. Luna's fucking narrating the Quidditch match. I cannot be asked to do her voice the whole way through. I cannot be bothered. Oh my goodness. I cannot be bothered to do Luna's voice the whole way through, so... And that Smith of Hufflepuff with the quaffle, said a dreamy voice, echoing over the grounds. He did the commentary last time, of course, and Ginny Weasley flew into him. I think probably on purpose, it looked like it. Smith was being quite rude about Gryffindor. I expect he regrets that now he's playing against them. Oh look, he's lost the quaffle. Ginny took it from him. I do like her, she's very nice. Harry stared down at the commentator's podium. Surely nobody in their right mind would have let Luna Lovegood commentate, but even from above there was no mistaking that long, dirty blonde hair, or the necklace of butterbeer corks. Beside Luna, Professor McGonagall was looking slightly uncomfortable, as though she was indeed having second thoughts about this appointment. But now that big Hufflepuff's player's got the quaffle from her. I can't remember his name. It's something like Bibble. No, Buggins? It's Cadwallader. That's a shit last name, dude. You gotta change that shit, said Professor McGonagall loudly from beside Luna. The crowd laughed. Harry stared around for the snitch. There was no sign of it. Moments later, Cadwallader scored. McLaggen had been shouting criticism at Ginny for allowing the quaffle out of her possession, with the result that he had not noticed the large red ball soaring past his right ear. McLaggen, will you pay attention to what you're supposed to be doing and leave everyone else alone? Bellowed Harry, wheeling around to face his keeper. You're not setting a great example, McLaggen shouted back, red-faced and furious. And Harry Potter's now having an argument with his keeper, said Luna serenely. while both Hufflepuffs and Slytherin below in the crowd cheered and jeered. I don't think that'll help him find the snitch, but maybe it's a clever ruse. Swearing angrily, Harry spun around and set off around the pitch again, scanning the skies for some sign of a tiny winged golden ball. Golden ball! Ginny and Demelza scored a goal apiece, giving the red and gold clad supporters below something to cheer about. Then, Cadwallader scored again, making things level, but Luna did not seem to have noticed. She appeared singularly uninterested in such mundane things as the score, and kept attempting to draw the crowd's attention to such things as interestingly shaped clouds and the possibility that Zachariah Smith, who had so far failed to maintain possession of the quaffle for longer than a minute, was suffering from something called loser's lurgy. 70-40 to Hufflepuff, barked Professor McGonagall into Luna's megaphone. Is it already? Said Luna vaguely. Oh look, the Gryffindor keeper's got a hold of one of the beater's bats. Harry spun around in midair. Sure enough, McLaggen, for reasons best known to himself, had pulled Peakes' bat from him and appeared to be demonstrating how to hit a bludger towards an oncoming Cadwallader. We give him back his bat and get back to the goalposts, roared Harry, pelting towards McLaggen just as McLaggen took a furious swipe at the bludger and mishit it. A blinding, sickening pain, a flash of light, distant screams, and the sensation of falling down a long tunnel. And the next thing Harry knew, he was lying in a remarkably warm and comfortable bed, looking up at a lamp that was throwing a circle of golden light onto a shadowy ceiling. He raised his head awkwardly. Oh goodness, I just accidentally glanced the next line down. There on his left was a familiar-looking, freckly, red-haired person. "Nice of you to drop in," said Ron, grinning. Fuck McLaggen, dude. Fuck that guy. Harry blinked and looked around. Of course he was in the hospital wing. The sky outside was indigo streaked with crimson. The match must have finished hours ago, as had any hope of cornering Malfoy. Harry's head felt strangely heavy. He raised a hand and felt a stiff turban of bandages. What happened? Cracked skull, said Madame Pomfrey, bustling up and pushing him back against the pillows. Nothing to worry about. I mended it at once, but I'm keeping you in overnight. You shouldn't overexert yourself for a few hours. I don't want to stay here overnight, said Harry angrily, sitting up and throwing back his covers. I want to find McLaggen and kill him. I'm afraid that will have to come under the heading of overexertion, said Madame Pomfrey, pushing him firmly back on the bed and raising her wand in a threatening manner. You will stay here until I discharge you, Potter, or I shall call the headmaster. She bustled back into her office, and Harry sank back down onto his pillows, fuming. Fuming! Dude is livid. I would be as well. I don't blame him. Do you know how much we lost by? He asked Ron through clenched teeth. Well, yeah, I do. Final score was 320 to 60. Brilliant, said Harry savagely. Really brilliant. When I get a hold of McLaggen... Oh, you don't want to get a hold of him. He's the size of a troll, said Ron reasonably. Personally, I think there's a lot to be said for hexing him with the toenail thing of the princes. Anyway, the rest of the team might have dealt with him before you get out there. They're not happy. There was a note of badly suppressed glee in Ron's voice. Harry could tell he was nothing short of thrilled that McLaggen had messed up so badly. Harry lay there, staring up at the patch of light on the ceiling. His recently mended skull not hurting, precisely, but feeling slightly tender underneath all the bandages. I could hear the match commentary from up here, said Ron, his voice now shaking with laughter. I hope Luna always commentates from now on. Loser's lurgy. But Harry was still too angry to see much humour in the situation, and after a while, Ron's snorts subsided. Ginny came to visit me while you were unconscious, he said after a long pause, and Harry's imagination zoomed into overdrive, rapidly constructing a scene in which Ginny, weeping over his lifeless form, confessed her feelings of deep attraction to him while Ron gave them his blessing. She reckons you only just arrived in time for the match. How come? You left her early enough. Oh, said Harry, as the scene in his mind's eyes imploded. Yeah, well, I saw Malfoy sneaking off with a couple of girls who didn't exactly look like they wanted to be with him. And that's the second time he's made sure he isn't down on the Quidditch pitch with the rest of the school. He skipped the last match too, remember? Harry sighed. I wish I'd followed him now. The match was such a fiasco. Nah, don't be stupid, said Ron sharply. You couldn't have missed a Quidditch match just to follow Malfoy. You're the captain. Yeah, but I want to know what he's up to, said Harry. And don't tell me it's all in my head. Not after what I overheard between him and Snape. I never said it was all in your head, said Ron, hoisting himself up on an elbow in turn and frowning at Harry. But there's no rule saying you're the only one person at a time who can be plotting anything in this place. You're getting a bit obsessed with Malfoy, Harry. I mean, thinking about missing a match just to follow him. I want to catch him at it, said Harry in frustration. I mean, where's he going to when he disappears off the map? I don't know, said said Ron. Hogsmeade? He suggested, yawning. I've never seen him going along any secret passages on the map. I thought they were being watched now anyway. Well then, I don't know, said Ron. Silence fell between them. Harry stared up at the circle of lamplight above him, thinking. If only he had Rufus Scrimgeour's power, he would have been able to set a tail upon Malfoy. But unfortunately, Harry did not have an office full of auras at his command. I cannot read today. I'm gonna fucking claw my eyes out. He thought fleetingly of trying to set something up with the DA. But there again was the problem that people would be missed from lessons. Most of them, after all, still had full timetables. There was a low, rumbling snore from Ron's bed. After a while, Madame Pomfrey came out of her office, this time wearing a thick dressing gown. It was easiest to feign sleep. Harry rolled over onto his side and listened to all the curtains closing themselves as she waved her wand. The lamps dimmed, and she returned to her office. He heard the door click behind her and knew that she was off to bed. This was, Harry reflected in the darkness, the third time that he had been brought to the hospital wing because of a Quidditch injury. Last time he had fallen off his broom due to the presence of Dementors around the pitch. The time before that, all the bones had been removed from his arm by the incurably inept Professor Lockhart. That had been the most painful injury by far. He remembered the agony of regrowing an armful of bones in one night, a discomfort not erased by the arrival of an unexpected visitor in the middle of the... Harry sat bolt upright, his heart pounding, his bandaged turban askew. He had the solution at last. There was a way to have Malfoy followed. How could he have forgotten? Why hadn't he thought of it before? But the question was, how to call him. What did you do? Quietly, tentatively, Harry spoke into the darkness. Creature? There was a very loud crack, and the sounds of scuffling and squeaks filled the silent room. Ron awoke with a yelp. What's going on? Harry pointed his wand hastily at the door of Madame Pomfrey's office and muttered, Muffliato, so that she would not come running. Then he scrambled to the end of his bed for a better look at what was going on. Two house elves were rolling around on the floor in the middle of the dormitory, one wearing a shrunken maroon jumper and several woolly hats, the other a filthy old rag strung over his hip like a loincloth. There was another loud bang, and Peeves the poltergeist appeared in mid-air above the wrestling elves. I was watching that, Potty, he told Harry indignantly, pointing to the fight below, before letting out a loud cackle. Look at the ickle creatures squabbling. Bitey bitey, punchy punchy. Oh, damn. Okay, alright. Dobby is fucking thrashing him. Oh, my God. Creature will not insult Harry Potter in front of Dobby. No, he won't, or Dobby will shut Creature's mouth for him, cried Dobby in a high-pitched voice. Go on! Go on, Dobby! Kicky, scratchy, cried Peeves happily, now pelting bits of chalk at the elves to enrage them further. Tweaky, pokey. Creature will say what he likes about his master, oh yes, and what a master he is, filthy friend of mudbloods. Oh, what would poor Creature's mistress say? Exactly what Creature's mistress would have said, they did not find out, for that moment, Dobby sank his knobbly little fist into Creature's mouth and knocked out half of his teeth. Go on! Have him! Harry and Ron both leapt out of their beds and wrenched the two elves apart, though they continued to try and kick and punch each other, egged on by Peeves, who swooped around the lamp squealing. Stick your fingers up his nosy, jaw him cork, and pull his earsies. Harry aimed his wand at Peeves and said, Langlock. Peeves clutched his throat, gulped, then swooped from the room, making obscene gestures but unable to speak, owing to the fact that his tongue had just glued itself to the roof of his mouth. Oh my goodness. Fucking hell, Dobby. That's my guy. You know what? This is completely changed the power scaling scene of Harry Potter. No? I think Dobby can take anyone in a fight. Wish I had that spell for you. Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Oh my goodness. Nice one, said Ron appreciatively, lifting Dobby into the air so that his flailing limbs no longer made contact with Creature. That was another Prince Hex, wasn't it? Yeah, said Harry, twisting Creature's wizened arm into a half Nelson. Right, I'm forbidding you two from fighting each other. Well, Creature, you're forbidden to fight Dobby. Dobby, I don't know if I'm still allowed to give you orders. Dobby is a free house elf and he can obey anyone he likes, and Dobby will do whatever Harry Potter wants him to do, said Dobby, tears now streaming down his shriveled little face onto his jumper. Okay then, said Harry, and he and Ron both released the elves, who fell to the floor but did not continue fighting. Master called me, croaked Creature. Fuck. Sinking into a bow even as he gave Harry a look that plainly wished him a painful death. Womp womp. Yeah, I did, said Harry, glancing towards Madame Pomfrey's office to check that the Muffliato spell was still working. There was no sight that she had heard any of the commotion. I've got a job for you. Creature will do whatever Master wants, said Creature, sinking so low that his lips almost touched the gnarled toes. Because Creature has no choice, but Creature is ashamed to have such a master, yes. Dobby will do it, Harry Potter, squeaked Dobby, his tennis ball-sized eyes still swimming with tears. Dobby would be honoured to help Master Potter. Come to think of it, it would be good to have both of you, said Harry. Okay then, I want you to tell Draco Malfoy. Ignoring the look of mingled surprise and exasperation on Ron's face, Harry went on. I want to know what he's doing, where he's going, who he's meeting, and I want you to follow him around the clock. Yes, Harry Potter, said Dobby at once, his great eyes shining with excitement. And if Dobby does it wrong, Dobby will throw himself off the topmost tower, Harry Potter. There won't be any need for that, said Harry hastily. Master wants me to follow the youngest of the Malfoys, croaked Creature. Master wants me to spy upon the pure-blood great-nephew of my old mistress. That's the one, said Harry, foreseeing a great danger in determining to prevent it immediately. Yeah, Harry... fuck's sake. That's the one, said Harry, foreseeing a great danger in determining to prevent it immediately. Just need to make sure I got that sentence right in my mind. And you're forbidden to tip him off, Creature, or to show him what you're up to, or to talk to him at all, or to write him messages, or to contact him in any way. Got it? He thought he could see Creature struggling to see a loophole in the instructions he had been given, and waited. After a moment or two, and to Harry's great satisfaction, Creature bowed deeply again, and said, with a bit of resentment, Master thinks of everything and Creature must obey him, even though Creature would much rather be the servant of the Malfoy boy. Oh, yes. That's settled then, said Harry. I want regular reports. But make sure I'm not surrounded by people when you turn up. Ron and Hermione are okay. And don't tell anyone what you're doing. Just stick to Malfoy like a couple of wart plasters. And that is the end of that chapter. Biggest takeaways? Fuck McLaggen. That's all we need to know on that chapter. That's all we need to know about that chapter. Oh my goodness gracious. I fucking really struggled to read that entire bit. My goodness gracious. I agree with the takeaway. Go eat now, you want some? Again, take the tomatoes off and yeah, sure. Take them tomatoes off. I'll have a bit of sandwich, why not? Agree with that takeaway. Yeah, because fucking McLaggen's a little piece of shit, man. He's such a knob. He actually reminds me so much of someone I used to know. Like, it is crazy how much he reminds me of someone I used to know. I'm not going to say names, but there used to be someone I knew from college who was dating one of my friends, Cameron, for a while, and this person was very much like to try and be the leader, like to try and be like telling everyone what to do and stuff like that. We used to play D&D with him as well, and you couldn't play your own character. Even though he was so inexperienced at the game, it was unbelievable. He would try and tell you what to do with your character. It's like, no, fuck off, dude. Turned out he got banned from college. Well, it's control freak. Turned out he got banned from college because he assaulted a girl. He choked her, like grabbed her neck and fucking choked her till she nearly passed out. Which is the thing he used to do. He used to grab people's throat. He grabbed my throat a couple times and got me in a couple of headlocks. And he was thrown out of college for it. Absolutely crazy situation. Yeah, no, right fucking fella. Just reminds me of, well, McLagan just reminded me of that, you know? that was what it was. Oh, ay caramba. Okay, so that's that chapter done then. Oh, what time is it? Okay. Hmm. Okay. Finish the book? No, I'm not finishing the book right here, right now. That shit. I mean, you know what? We could. It might take us till about 11 o'clock at night, but you know, absolutely not. We'll we'll do chapter 20 tonight, yeah, and then that leaves us 9 chapters left in total. Yeah. Or we can leave it there, play some Silk Song for a long while, and then we've got 10 chapters left. So that'd be what, 2 tomorrow, none on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday, none on Friday, like 4 on Saturday, and then we finish it on the Sunday, or we could finish it on the Saturday, because at least I finish work at the end of this week. So I'm thinking, nah, fuck it, we'll read another one. It just bumps us down by another bit. Alright, what I'm going to do though, before we get on to the next chapter, is... Yeah, what I'm going to do before we get on to the next chapter is I'm going to go and make myself a nice hot cup of tea. A nice hot cup of joe. So, I will be right back while I go and do that, and I will see you guys in a few minutes. Bomba! Bomba, bomba. We back. We back. We back. Oh, you know, I didn't open my regular advent calendars today, and I'm kind of getting a little hankering for a little bit of Cadbury's chocolate. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. Yum. Delicious. Of course I'm back. I'm here. Oh my goodness. How we feeling? How we feeling? We ready to hop into the next chapter? Chapter 20, Lord Voldemort's Request. That's the chapter's name. He always comes back. I always come back. Ugh. You just told your mother about me. Uh-oh. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't... Are you going to get your mother to pull up and watch the streams? Get mother to subscribe. Say, mother, you have to subscribe to Mataro. They want 500... Not 500. They want 250 subs before Christmas. It's true. I want 250 subs for Christmas. That's what you guys can get me. That's how you guys can help me out. The city needs me. Of course the city needs me. The city, it calls to me. Who am I? Batman. And then cue, I don't know, Something in the Way by Nirvana. Something in the way. Ooh. Something in the way. Yeah. Ooh. You know what I'm saying? Guys, I'm gonna go see you. I'll see you on Tuesday, tomorrow. Now do the Luna. Well, Batman and Luna. Oh, goodness. Absolutely not. Okay, chapter 20, chapter 20. Lord Voldemort's Request. I'll probably be back tomorrow. Maybe, if the chat works. The chat will work. It's always working. Don't worry about it. Alright, chapter 20, Lord Voldemort's Request. Let's go! Harry and Ron left the hospital wing first thing on Monday morning. Restored to full health by the ministrations of Madame Pomfrey, and now able to enjoy the benefits of having been knocked out and poisoned. The best of which was that Hermione was friends with Ron again. Hermione even escorted them down to breakfast, bringing with her the news that Ginny had argued with Dean. The drowsing creature in Harry's chest suddenly raised its head, sniffing the air hopefully. I don't like that comparison to, like, a monster in his fucking... He's not fucking Naruto. He ain't got the Ninetale in him, alright? My goodness. What did they row about? He asked, trying to sound casual as they turned into a 7th floor corridor, which was deserted, but for a very small girl who had been examining a tapestry of trolls in tutus. She looked terrified at the sight of the approaching 6th years and dropped the heavy brass scale she was carrying. It's all right, said Hermione kindly, hurrying forwards to help her. Here. She tapped the broken scales with her wand and said, Reparo. The girl did not say thank you, but remained rooted to the spot as they passed and watched them out of sight. Ron glanced back at her. I swear they're getting smaller, he said. Never mind about her, said Harry, a little impatiently. What did Ginny and Dean row about, Hermione? Oh, Dean was laughing about McLaggen hitting a bludger at you, said Hermione. Must have looked funny, said Ron reasonably. It didn't look funny at all, said Hermione hotly. It looked terrible, and if Coot and Peaks hadn't caught Harry, he would have been very badly hurt. Yeah, well, there was no need for Ginny and Dean to split up over it, said Harry, still trying to sound casual. Or Are they still together? Yes, they are, but why are you so interested? Asked Hermione, giving Harry a sharp look. I just want my Quidditch... I just don't want my Quidditch team messed up again, he said hastily. But Hermione continued to look suspicious, and he was most relieved when a voice behind them called, Harry! Giving him an excuse to turn his back on her. Oh, that was not the right voice. That was not the right voice at all. Oh my goodness. That was not the right voice. Apparently it's Luna. Apparently Luna just turned into a 22-year-old British person. Harry! Harry! Giving him an excuse to turn back on her. Oh, hi Luna. I went to the hospital wing to find you, said Luna, rummaging in her bag. But they said you'd left. She thrust what appeared to be a green onion, a large spotted toadstool, and a considerable amount of what looked like cat litter into Ron's hands, finally pulling out a rather grubby scroll of parchment that she handed to Harry. I've been told to give you this. It was a small roll of parchment which Harry recognised at once to be another invitation to a lesson with Dumbledore. Tonight, he told Ron and Hermione once he had unrolled it. Nice commentary last match, said Ron to Luna, as they took back the green onion, the toadstool, and the cat, the toadstool, and the cat litter. Luna smiled vaguely. You're making fun of me, aren't you? She said. Everyone says I was dreadful. No, I'm serious, said Ron earnestly. I can't remember enjoying commentary more. What is this, by the way? He added, looking like, holding the onion-like object up to eye level. I'm going to read the rest of the book like this because apparently I can talk clearly like this when I'm not trying to put emotion into the performance. Is the chat okay with that? Guess what stream I'm trying to be. Look at this chat. Let me just blow my nose real quick. Shut is literally amazing. Shut. He speaks even worse than sped up Sims. Oh, it's a Gertie root, she said, stuffing the cat litter and the toadstool back into her bag. You can keep it if you'd like. I've got a few of them. They're really excellent for warding off gulping plim peas. And she walked away, leaving Ron chortling, still clutching the Gertie root. You know, she's growing on me, that Luna, he said as they set off again for the Great Hall. I know she's insane, but it's in a good... He stopped talking very suddenly. Lavender Brown was standing at the foot of the marble staircase looking thunderous. Hi, said Ron nervously. Come on, Harry muttered to Hermione, and they sped past, though not before they had heard Lavender say, Why didn't you tell me you were getting out today? And why was she with you? Good God. Ron, get out of there. Alan, we are so fucked. Ron looked both sulky and annoyed when he appeared at breakfast half an hour later, and though he sat with Lavender, Harry did not see them exchange a word all the time they were together. Hermione was acting as though she was quite oblivious to all of this, but once or twice Harry saw an inexplicable smirk across her face. All that day she seemed to be in a particularly good mood, and that evening, in the common room, she even consented to look over, in other words, finish writing, Harry's herbology essay. Something she had been resolutely refusing to do up to that point, because she had known that Harry would then let Ron copy his work. Thanks a lot, Hermione, said Harry, giving her a hasty pat on the back as he checked his watch and saw that it was nearly 8 o'clock. Listen, I've got to hurry or I'll be late for Dumbledore. She did not answer, but merely crossed out a few of his feeblest sentences in a weary sort of way. Grinning, Harry hurried out through the portrait hole and off to the headmaster's office. The gargoyle leapt aside at the mention of toffee eclairs, and Harry took the spiral staircase 2 steps at a time, knocking on the door just as a clock within chimed 8. Enter, called Dumbledore, but as Harry put out a hand to push the door, it was wrenched open from the inside. There stood Professor Trelawney. Aha! She cried, pointing dramatically at Harry as she blinked at him through her magnifying spectacles. So this is the reason I am to be thrown unceremoniously from your office, Dumbledore?
My dear Sybil, said Dumbledore in a slightly exasperated voice, there is no question of throwing you unceremoniously from anywhere. But Harry does have an appointment, and I really don't think there is any more to be said.
Very well, said Professor Trelawney in a deeply wounded voice. If you will not banish the unsung... what the fuck? Usurping. If you will not banish the usurping nag, so be it. Perhaps I shall find a school where my talents are better appreciated. She pushed past Harry and disappeared down the spiral staircase. They heard her stumble halfway down, and Harry guessed that she had tripped over one of her trailing shawls.
Please close the door and sit down, Harry,
said Dumbledore, sounding rather tired. Harry obeyed, noticing as he took his seat in front of Dumbledore's desk that the pensive lay between them once more, as did 2 more tiny crystal bottles full of swirling memory.
Professor Trelawney?
Oh, sorry. No, that's not Dumbledore saying that. That's Harry. Professor Trelawney still isn't happy Firenze's teaching, I take it, said Harry.
No, said Dumbledore. Divination is turning out to be much more trouble than I could have foreseen. Never having studied the subject myself, I cannot ask Firenze to return to the forest, where he is now an outcast, nor can I ask Sybil Trelawney to leave. Between ourselves, she has no idea of the danger she would be outside the castle. She does not know, and I think it would be unwise to enlighten her, that she made the prophecy about you and Dumbledore, you see.
So, Dumbledore, Voldemort, you see. Dumbledore heaved a deep sigh, then said,
But never mind my staffing problems. We have much more important matters to discuss. Firstly, have you managed the task I set out for you at the end of our previous lesson?
Said Harry, brought up short. With that apparition lesson in Quidditch and Ron being poisoned and getting his skull cracked and his determination to find out what Draco Malfoy was up to, Harry had almost forgotten completely about the memory Dumbledore had asked him to extract from Professor Slughorn. Well, I asked Professor Slughorn about it at the end of Potions, sir, but he wouldn't give it to me. There was a little silence.
I see,
said Dumbledore eventually, peering at Harry over the top of his half-moon spectacles and giving Harry the usual sensation that he was being X-rayed.
And you feel that you have exerted your very best efforts in this matter, do you? That you have exercised all your considerable ingenuity? That you have left no depth of cunning unplumbed in your quest to retrieve the memory?
Well, Harry stalled, at a loss for what to say next. His single attempt to get a hold of the memory suddenly seemed embarrassingly feeble. Well, the day Ron swallowed the love potion by mistake, I took him to Professor Slughorn. I thought maybe if I got Slughorn into a good enough mood.
And did that work?
Asked Dumbledore. Well, no, sir, because Ron got poisoned.
Which naturally made you forget all about trying to retrieve the memory. I would have expected nothing less while your best friend was in danger. Once it became clear that Mr. Weasley was going to make a full recovery, however, I would have hoped that you returned to the task I set you. I thought I made it clear to you how very important the memory is. Indeed, I did my best to impress upon you that it is the most crucial memory of all that we would be wasting our time without.
God, he's being a bit of a knob, isn't he? A hot, prickly feeling of shame spread from the top of Harry's head all the way down his body. Dumbledore had not raised his voice. He did not even sound angry, but Harry would have preferred him to yell. This cold disappointment was worse than anything. Yeah, absolutely. Sir, he said, a little desperately. It isn't that I wasn't bothered or anything. I've just had other things.
Other things on your mind?
Dumbledore finished the sentence for him.
I see.
Silence fell between the two again. The most uncomfortable silence Harry had ever experienced with Dumbledore. He seemed to go on and on, punctuated only by the little grunting snores of the portrait of Armando Dippet over Dumbledore's head. Harry felt strangely diminished, as though he had shrunk a little since he had last entered the room. When he could stand it no longer, he said, Professor Dumbledore, I'm really sorry. I should have done more. I should have realised you wouldn't have asked me to do it if it wasn't really that important.
Thank you for saying that, Harry, said Dumbledore quietly. May I hope then that you will give this matter a higher priority from now on? There will be little point of our meeting after tonight unless we have that memory.
I'll do it, sir. I'll get it from him, Harry said earnestly.
Then we shall say no more about it just now, said Dumbledore more kindly, but continue with our story where we left off. You remember where that was?
Yes, sir, said Harry quickly. Voldemort killed his father and his grandparents made it look as though his Uncle Morphin did it. Then he went back to Hogwarts and he asked Professor Slughorn about Horcruxes. He mumbled shamefacedly.
Very good,
said Dumbledore.
Now you will remember, I hope, that I told you at the very outset of these meetings of ours that we would be entering the realm of guesswork and speculation.
Yes, sir.
Thus far, I hope you agree. I have shown you reasonably firm sources of fact from my deductions as to what Voldemort did until the age of 17.
Harry nodded.
But now, Harry, said Dumbledore, now things become murkier and stranger. If it was difficult to find evidence about the boy Riddle, it has become almost impossible to find anyone prepared to reminisce about the man Voldemort. In fact, I doubt whether there is a soul alive apart from himself who could give us a full account of his life since he left Hogwarts. However, I have two last memories that I would like to share with you.
Dumbledore indicated the two little crystal bottles gleaming beside the pensive.
I shall then be glad of your opinion as to whether the conclusion I have drawn from them seems likely.
The idea that Dumbledore valued his opinion this highly made... The idea that Dumbledore valued his opinion this highly made Harry... there's a missing full stop or comma there, isn't there? The fact that Dumbledore valued his opinion this highly made Harry feel even more deeply ashamed than that he had failed in the task of retrieving the Horcrux memory. That doesn't seem like a correct sentence. At least not to me. Maybe I'm just stupid, but... And he shifted guiltily on his seat as Dumbledore raised the first of two bottles to the light and examined it.
I hope you are not tired of diving into other people's memories, for they are curious recollections, these two, he said. This first one came from a very old house elf by the name of Hokey. Before we see what Hokey witnessed, I must quickly recount how Lord Voldemort left Hogwarts. He reached the 7th year of his schooling with, as you might have expected, top grades in every examination he had taken. All around him his classmates were deciding which jobs they were pursuing once they had left Hogwarts. Nearly everybody expected spectacular things from Tom Riddle, prefect, head boy, winner of the special award for services to the school. I know that several teachers, Professor Slughorn among them, suggested that he join the Ministry of Magic, offered to set up appointments, put him in touch with useful contracts. He refused all offers. The next thing the staff knew, Voldemort was working at Borgin and Burke's.
At Borgin and Burke's? Harry repeated, stunned.
At Borgin and Burke's, repeated Dumbledore calmly. I think you will see what attractions the place held for him when we have entered Hokey's memory. But this was not Voldemort's first choice of job. Hardly anyone knew of it at the time. I was one of the few in whom the then headmaster confided. But Voldemort first approached Professor Dippet and asked whether he could remain at Hogwarts as a teacher.
He wanted to stay here. Why? Asked Harry, more amazed still.
I believe he had several reasons, though he confided none of them to Professor Dippet, said Dumbledore. Firstly, and very importantly, Voldemort was, I believe, more attached to this school than he was ever been to a person. Hogwarts was where he had been happiest, the first and only place he had felt at home.
Harry felt slightly uncomfortable at these words, for this was exactly how he felt about Hogwarts too.
Secondly, the castle is a stronghold of ancient magic. Undoubtedly, Voldemort had penetrated many more of its secrets than most of the students who passed through the place, but he may have felt that there were still mysteries to unravel, stores of magic to tap. And thirdly, as a teacher, he would have had great power and influence over young witches and wizards. Perhaps he had gained the idea from Professor Slughorn, the teacher with whom he was on best terms with, who had demonstrated how influential a role a teacher can play. I do not imagine for an instant that Voldemort envisaged spending the rest of his life at Hogwarts, but I do think that he saw it as a useful recruiting ground, and a place where he might begin to build himself an army.
But he didn't get the job, sir.
No, he did not. Professor Dippet told him that he was too young at 18, but invited him to reapply in a few years, if he still wished to teach.
How did you feel about that, sir? Asked Harry hesitantly.
Deeply uneasy, said Dumbledore. I had advised Armando against the appointment. I did not give the reason I have given you, for Professor Dippet was very fond of Voldemort and convinced of his honesty. But I did not want Lord Voldemort back at this school, and especially not in a position of power.
Which job did he want, sir? What subject did he want to teach? Somehow, Harry knew the answer even before Dumbledore gave it.
Defense Against the Dark Arts. It was being taught at the time by an old professor by the name of Galatea Merrythought, who had been at Hogwarts for nearly 50 years.
That's a long-ass time.
So, Voldemort went off to Borgin and Burke's, and all the staff who had admired him said what a waste it was. A brilliant young wizard like that working in a shop. However, Voldemort was no mere assistant. Polite and handsome and clever, he was soon given particular jobs of a type that only exists in a place like Borgin and Burke's, which specialises, as you know, Harry, in objects with unusual and powerful properties. Voldemort was sent to persuade people to part with their treasures for sale by the partners, and he was, by all accounts, unusually gifted at doing this.
I'll bet he was, said Harry, unable to contain himself.
Well, quite, said Dumbledore with a faint smile. And now it is time to hear from Hokey the house elf, who worked for a very old, very rich witch by the name of Hephzibah Smith.
I think that's how you pronounce that. Dumbledore tapped a bottle with his wand. The cork flew out, and he tipped the swirling memory into the pensieve, saying as he did so,
After you, Harry.
Harry got to his feet and bent once more over the rippling silver contents of the stone basin until his face touched them. He tumbled through dark nothingness and landed in a sitting room in front of an immense fat old lady wearing an elaborate ginger wig and a brilliant pink set of robes that flowed all around her, giving her the look of a melting iced cake. She was looking into a small jewelled mirror and dabbing rouge onto her already scarlet cheeks with a large powder puff, while the tiniest and oldest house elf Harry had ever seen laced her fleshy feet into tight satin slippers. "Hurry up, Hokey," said Hepatitis, that's what we're going to call her now, imperiously. "He said he'd come at 4. It's only a couple of minutes too, and he's never been late yet." She tucked away her powder puff as the house elf straightened up. The top of the elf's head barely reached the seat of Hepatitis's chair. I can't actually. Hepzibah? It's just an awful name to say. What the fuck kind of name is Hepzibah? How much do your parents have to hate you to call you something like that? And her papery skin hung off her frame, just like the crisp linen sheet she wore draped like a toga. "How do I look?" said Hepzibah, turning her head to admire the various angles of her face in the mirror. "Lovely, madam," squeaked Hokey. Harry could only assume that it was down in Hokey's contract that she must lie through her teeth when asked this question, because Hepzibah Smith looked a long way from lovely in his opinion. Is this Zachariah Smith's fucking aunt or some shit? Who knows? A tinkling doorbell rang and both mistress and elf jumped. Quick, he's here, Hokey!" cried Hepzibah, and the elf scurried out of the room, which was so crowded with objects that it was difficult to see how anybody could navigate their way across it without knocking over at least a dozen things. There were cabinets full of little... Sorry, there's a sneeze coming. Oh my goodness. Oh, I feel like buns. There were cabinets full of little lacquered boxes, cases full of gold embossed books, shelves of orbs and celestial globes, and many flourishing pot plants in brass containers. In fact, the room looked like a cross between a magical antique shop and a conservatory. The house elf returned within minutes, followed by a tall young man. Harry had no difficulty whatsoever in recognising as Voldemort. He was plainly dressed in a black suit, his hair was a little longer than it had been at school, and his cheeks were hollowed. But all of this suited him. He looked more handsome than ever. He picked his way through the cramped room with an air that showed he had visited many times before, and bowed low over Hepzibah's fat little hand, brushing it with his lips. "I brought you flowers," he said quietly, producing a bunch of roses from nowhere. "You naughty boy, you shouldn't have," squealed old Hepzibah, though Harry noticed that she had an empty vase, however you want to say it, standing ready on the nearest little table. "You do spoil this old lady, Tom. Sit down. Where's Hokey? Ah!" The house elf had come dashing back into the room carrying a tray of little cakes, which she set at her mistress's elbow. "Help yourself, Tom," said Hepzibah. "I know how you love my cakes. Now, how are you? You look pale. They overwork you at their shop. I've said it 100 times. Voldemort smiled mechanically, and Hepzibah simpered. Simp! "Well, what's your excuse for visiting this time?" she asked, batting her lashes. "Mr. Burke would like to make an improved offer for the goblin-made armour," said Voldemort. 500 galleons. He feels it is more than fair." Now, not so fast. I think you're only here for my trinkets," pouted Hepzibah. "I'm ordered here because of them," said Voldemort quietly. "I'm only a poor assistant, madam, who must do as he is told. Mr. Burke wishes me to inquire—" "Oh, Mr. Burke, phooey," said Hepzibah, waving a little hand. "I've something to show you that I've never shown Mr. Burke. Can you keep a secret, Tom? Will you promise you won't tell Mr. Burke I've got it? He'd never let me rest if he knew I'd shown it to you, and I'm not selling. Not to Burke, not to anyone, but you, Tom. You'll appreciate it for its history, and not how many galleons you can get for it." "I'll be glad to see anything Miss Hepzibah shows me," said Voldemort quietly, and Hepzibah gave another girlish giggle. "I had Hokey bring it out for me. Hokey, where are you? I want to show Mr. Riddle our finest treasure. In fact, bring both while you're at it." "Here, madam," squeaked the house elf, and Harry saw 2 leather boxes, one on top of the other, moving across the room as if of their own volition, though he knew the tiny elf was holding them over her head as she wended her way through the tables. Between the tables, puffs and footstools. "Now," said Hepzibah happily. "I fucking hate that name. Oh my goodness, get a fucking different name. Fucking hepatitis. Jesus Christ." "Now," said Hepzibah happily, taking the boxes from the elf, laying them in her lap, and preparing to open the topmost one. "I think you'll like this, Tom. Oh, if my family knew I was showing you, they can't wait to get their hands on this." She opened the lid. Harry edged forward a little to get a better view and saw what looked like a small golden cup with 2 finely wrought handles. "I wonder whether you know what it is, Tom. Pick it up, have a good look," whispered Hepzibah, and Voldemort stretched out a long-fingered hand and lifted the cup by one handle out of its snug silken wrappings. I felt another sneeze coming. Never mind, it's gone away. My goodness gracious. Harry thought he saw a red gleam in his dark eyes. His greedy expression was curiously mirrored on Hepzibah's face, except that her tiny eyes were fixed upon Voldemort's handsome features. "A badger," murmured Voldemort, examining the engraving upon the cup. "Then this was Helga Hufflepuff's, as you very well know, you clever boy," said Hepzibah, leaning forwards with a loud creaking of corsets and actually pinching his hollow cheek. My nose is fucking blocked completely. I want to cry. "Didn't I tell you I was distantly descended? This has been handed down in the family for years and years. Lovely, isn't it? And all sorts of powers it's supposed to possess too, but I haven't tested them thoroughly. I just keep it nice and safe in there." She hooked the cup back off Voldemort's long forefingers and restored it gently to its box, too intent upon settling it carefully back into position to notice the shadow that crossed Voldemort's face as the cup was taken away. "Now then," said Hepzibah happily. "Where's Hokey? Oh yes, there you are. Take that away now, Hokey." Oh my goodness, there's literally fucking snot dribbling down my nose. What the fuck has happened in the past 20 minutes? My goodness gracious. I felt like my fucking brains leaking out my nose. Jesus. I fucking hate having a cold. I hate it so much. The elf obediently took the boxed cup, and Hepzibah turned her attention to the much flatter box in her lap. "I think you'll like this even more, Tom," she whispered. "Lean in a little, dear boy, so you can see. Of course, Burke knows I've got this one. I bought it from him, and I dare say he'd love to get it back when I'm gone. She slid back the fine, filigree clasp and flipped open the box. There, upon the smooth crimson velvet, lay a heavy golden locket. Voldemort reached out his hand, and without invitation this time, and held it up to the light, staring at it. "Slytherin's mark," he said quietly, as the light played upon an ornate serpentine S. "That's right," said Hepzibah, delighted, apparently, at the sight of Voldemort gazing at her locket, transfixed. "I had to pay an arm and a leg for it, but I couldn't let it pass. Not a real treasure like that. Had to have it for my collection. Burke bought it, apparently from a ragged-looking woman who seemed to have stolen it, but had no idea of its true value." There was no mistaking it this time. Voldemort's eyes flashed scarlet at her words, and Harry saw his knuckles whiten on the locket's chain. "I dare say Burke paid her a pittance. But there you are. Pretty, isn't it? And again, all kinds of powers attributed to it, though I just keep it nice and safe." She reached out to take the locket back. For a moment Harry thought Voldemort was not going to let go of it, but then it had slid through his fingers and was back on its red velvet cushion. "So there you are, Tom dear, and I hope you enjoyed that." She looked him full in the face, and for the first time Harry saw her foolish smile falter. "Are you all right, dear?" "Oh, yes," said Voldemort quietly. "Yes, I'm very well." "I thought... but a trick of the light, I suppose," said Hepzibah, looking unnerved, and Harry guessed that she, too, had seen the momentary red gleam in Voldemort's eyes. "Here, Hokey, take these away and lock them up. The usual enchantment."
"Time to leave, Harry?"
said Dumbledore quietly, and as the little elf bobbed away bearing the boxes, Dumbledore grasped Harry once again above the elbow, and together they rose up through oblivion and back to Dumbledore's office.
"Hepzibah Smith died 2 days after the little scene,"
said Dumbledore, resuming his seat and indicating that Harry should do the same.
"Hokey the house elf was convicted by the Ministry of poisoning her mistress's evening cocoa by accident."
"No way," said Harry angrily.
"I see we are of the same mind," said Dumbledore. "Certainly there are many similarities between this death and that of the Riddles. In both cases someone else took the blame, someone who had a clear memory of having caused the death."
"Hokey confessed?"
"She remembered putting something in her mistress's cocoa. That turned out not to be sugar, but a lethal and little-known poison," said Dumbledore. "It was concluded that she had not meant to do it, but being old and confused—"
"Voldemort modified her memory, just like he did with Morphin."
"Yes, that is my conclusion too," said Dumbledore. "And just as with Morphin, the Ministry was predisposed to suspect Hokey."
"Because she was a house elf," said Harry. He had rarely felt more in sympathy with the society Hermione had set up, SPEW.
"Precisely," said Dumbledore. "She was old, she admitted to having tampered with the drink, and nobody at the Ministry bothered to inquire further. As in the case of Morphin, by the time I traced her and managed to extract the memory, her life was almost over. But her memory, of course, proves nothing except that Voldemort knew of the existence of the cup and the locket. By the time Hokey was convicted, Hepzibah's family had realized that 2 of her greatest treasures were missing. It took them a while to be sure of this, for she had many hiding places, having always guarded her collection most jealously. But before they were such beyond doubt that the cup and the locket were both gone, the assistant who had worked at Borgin and Burke's, the young man who had visited Hepzibah so regularly and charmed her so well, had resigned his post and vanished. His superiors had no idea where he had gone. They were as surprised as anybody at his disappearance. And that was the last that was seen or heard of Tom Riddle for a very long time." "Now," said Dumbledore, "if you don't mind, Harry, I want to pause once more to draw your attention to certain points of our story. Voldemort had committed another murder. Whether it was his first since he killed the Riddles I do not know, but I think it was. This time, as you will have seen, he killed not for revenge but for gain. He wanted the 2 fabulous trophies that poor besotted woman had shown him. Just as he had once robbed the other children at his orphanage, just as he had stolen his Uncle Morphin's ring, so he ran off now with Hepzibah's cup and locket."
"But," said Harry, frowning, "it seems mad. Risking everything, throwing away his job, just for those—"
"Mad to you, perhaps, but not to Voldemort," said Dumbledore. "I hope you will understand in due course exactly what those objects meant to him. Harry, but you must admit that it is not difficult to imagine that he saw the locket, at least, as rightfully his."
"The locket, maybe," said Harry. "But why take the cup as well?"
"It had belonged to another one of Hogwarts' founders," said Dumbledore. "I think he still felt a great pull towards the school, and that he could not resist an object so steeped in Hogwarts' history. There are other reasons, I think. I hope to be able to demonstrate them to you in due course. And now for the very last recollection I have to show you, at least until you manage to retrieve Professor Slughorn's memory for us. 10 years separate, Hokey's memory in this one, 10 years during which we can only guess at what Lord Voldemort was doing."
Harry got to his feet once more as Dumbledore emptied the last memory into the pensieve. "Whose memory is it?" he asked.
"Mine,"
said Dumbledore. And Harry dived after Dumbledore through the shifting silver mass, landing in the very office he had just left. There was Fawkes, slumbering happily on the perch, and there behind the desk was Dumbledore, who looked very similar to the Dumbledore standing beside Harry, though both hands were whole and undamaged and his face, perhaps, a little less lined. The one difference between his present-day office and this one was that it was snowing in the past. Bluish flecks were drifting past the window in the dark and building up in the outside ledge. The younger Dumbledore seemed to be waiting for something, and, sure enough, moments after their arrival, there was a knock on the door and he said, "Enter." Harry let out a hastily stifled gasp. Voldemort had entered the room. His features were not those Harry had seen emerge from the Great Stone Cauldron almost 2 years before. They were not as snake-like. The eyes were not yet scarlet, the face was not yet mask-like, and yet he was no longer handsome Tom Riddle. It was as though his features had been burned and blurred. They were waxy and oddly distorted, and the white of the eyes now had a permanently bloody look, though the pupils were not yet the slits that Harry knew they would become. He was wearing a long black cloak, and his face was as pale as the snow glistening on his shoulders. The Dumbledore behind the desk showed no signs of surprise. Evidently, this visit had been made by appointment.
"Good evening, Tom," said Dumbledore easily. "Won't you sit down?"
"Thank you," said Voldemort, and he took the seat to which Dumbledore had gestured. The very seat, by the looks of it, that Harry had just vacated in the present.
"I heard that you had become headmaster,"
he said, and his voice was slightly higher and colder than it had been.
"A worthy choice." "I am glad you approve," said Dumbledore, smiling. "May I offer you a drink?"
"That would be welcome," said Voldemort.
"I've come a long way."
Dumbledore stood and swept over the cabinet where he now kept the pensieve, but which then was full of bottles. Having handed Voldemort a goblet of wine and poured one for himself, he returned to the seat behind the desk.
"So, Tom, to what do I owe the pleasure?"
Voldemort did not answer at once, but merely sipped his wine.
"They do not call me Tom any more," he said. "These days I am known as—" "I know what you are known as," said Dumbledore, smiling pleasantly. "But to me, I'm afraid you will always be Tom Riddle. It is one of the irritating things about old teachers, I'm afraid, that they never quite forget their charges, youthful beginnings.
He raised his glass as though toasting Voldemort, whose face remained expressionless. Nevertheless, Harry felt the atmosphere in the room change subtly. Dumbledore's refusal to use Voldemort's chosen name was a refusal to allow Voldemort to dictate the terms of the meeting, and Harry could tell that Voldemort took it as such.
"I'm surprised you have remained here so long," said Voldemort after a short pause. "I always wondered why a wizard such as yourself never wished to leave school."
"Well," said Dumbledore, still smiling,
"to a wizard such as myself, there can be nothing more important than passing on ancient skills, helping hone young minds. If I remember correctly, you once saw the attraction of teaching too."
"I see it still," said Voldemort.
"I merely wondered why you, who was so often asked for advice by the ministry, and who has twice, I think, been offered the post of minister—" "3 times on the last counter, actually," said Dumbledore. "But the ministry never attracted me as a career. Again, something we have in common, I think." Voldemort inclined his head, unsmiling, and took another sip of wine. Dumbledore did not break the silence and stretch between them now, but waited with a look of pleasant expectancy for Voldemort to talk first. "I have returned," he said, after a little while. "Later, perhaps, than Professor Dibbit expected. But I have returned, nevertheless, to request again what he once told me I was too young to have. I have come to you to ask that you permit me to return to the castle to teach. I think you must know that I have seen and done much since I left this place. I could show and tell your students things they gain from no other wizard.
Dumbledore considered Voldemort over the top of his own goblet for a while before speaking.
Yes, I certainly do know that you have seen and done much since leaving us,
He said quietly.
Rumours of your doings have reached your old school, Tom. I should be sorry to believe half of them.
Voldemort's expression remained impassive as he said,
Greatness inspires envy. Envy engenders spite. Spite spawns lies. You know this, Dumbledore. You call it greatness? And what you have been doing, do you?
asked Dumbledore delicately.
Certainly,
said Voldemort, and his eyes seemed to burn red.
I have experimented. I have pushed the boundaries of magic further, perhaps than they have ever been pushed. Of some kinds of magic, Dumbledore corrected him quietly. Of some. Of others you remain, forgive me, woefully ignorant.
For the first time, Voldemort smiled. It was a taut leer, an evil thing, more threatening than a look of rage.
The old argument, he said softly. But nothing I have seen in the world has supported your famous pronouncements that love is more powerful than my kind of magic, Dumbledore. Perhaps you have been looking in the wrong places, suggested Dumbledore. Well then, what a better place to start my fresh researches than here, at Hogwarts, said Voldemort. Will you let me return? Will you let me share my knowledge with your students? I place myself and my talents at your disposal. I am at your command.
Dumbledore raised his eyebrows.
And what will become of those who you command? What will happen to those who call themselves, or so rumour has it, the Death Eaters?
Harry could tell that Voldemort had not expected Dumbledore to know this name. He saw Voldemort's eyes flash red again, and the slit-like nostrils flare. My friends, he said after a moment's pause, will carry on without me, I am sure.
I am glad to hear that you consider them friends, said Dumbledore. I was under the impression that they are more in the order of servants. You are mistaken, said Voldemort. Then if I were to go to the Hog's Head tonight, I would not find a group of them, not Rosier, Mulciber, Dolohov, waiting your return. Devoted friends indeed to travel this far with you on a snowy night, merely to wish you luck as you attempted to secure a teaching post.
There could be no doubt that Dumbledore's detailed knowledge of those with whom he was travelling was even less welcome than to Voldemort. What? There could be no doubt that Dumbledore's detailed knowledge of those with whom he was travelling was even less welcome to Voldemort. However, he rallied almost at once. You are omniscient as ever, Dumbledore. Oh no, merely friendly with the local barman, said Dumbledore lightly. Now, Tom. Dumbledore set down his empty glass and threw himself up on his seat, the tips of his fingers together in a very characteristic gesture. Let us speak openly. Why have you come here tonight, surrounded by henchmen, to request a job we both know you do not want? Voldemort looked coldly surprised. A job I do not want. On the contrary, Dumbledore, I want it very much. Oh, you want to come back to Hogwarts, but you do not want to teach any more than you wanted to when you were 18. What is it you're after, Tom? Why not try an open request for once? Voldemort sneered. If you do not want to give me a job, of course I don't, said Dumbledore, and I don't think for a moment you expected me to. Nevertheless, you came here, you asked, and you have had a purpose. So, you must have a purpose. Voldemort stood up. He looked less like Tom Riddle than ever, his features thick with rage. This is your final word? It is, said Dumbledore, also standing. Then we have nothing more to say to each other. No, nothing, said Dumbledore, and a great sadness filled his face. The time is long gone when I could frighten you with a burning wardrobe and force you to make repayments for your crimes. But I wish I could, Tom. I wish I could. For a second, Harry was on the verge of shouting a pointless warning. He was sure that Voldemort's hand had twitched towards his pocket and at his wand. But then, the moment had passed. Voldemort had turned away, the door was closing and he was gone. Harry felt Dumbledore's hand close over his arm again, and moments later they were standing together on almost the same spot. But there was no snow building on the window ledge, and Dumbledore's hand was blackened and dead-looking once more. Why? Said Harry at once, looking up into Dumbledore's face. Why did he come back? Did you ever find out? I have ideas,
said Dumbledore, but no more than that.
What ideas, sir?
I shall tell you, Harry, when you have retrieved that memory from Professor Slughorn, said Dumbledore. When you have that last piece of the jigsaw, everything will, I hope, be clear to both of us.
Harry was still burning with curiosity, and even though Dumbledore had walked to the door and was holding it open for him, he did not move at once. Was he after the Defence Against the Dark Arts job again, sir? He didn't say.
Oh, he definitely wanted the Defence Against the Dark Arts job, said Dumbledore. The aftermath of our little meeting proved that. You see, we've never ever been able to keep a Defence Against the Dark Arts teacher for longer than a year since I refused to post to Lord Voldemort.
And I believe that's the end of the chapter. That ends off chapter 20. So that was when Dumbledore cursed the Defence Against the Dark Arts job. No? When he put the curse on it. Okay. Nice. Alright. That's the end of that chapter. I don't really quite know what to say. You can see the pieces are coming together though. That's really cool. I knew the goblet when I saw it. I was like, oh my god, that's that one part in Deathly Hallows, right? I didn't know it was Helga Hufflepuff's though. That's cool. That's really cool. That's awesome. So it's like all of the like Hogwarts founders, like an item connected to them, it links to Voldemort in a way, you know. You have Slytherin's like locket, and then slight spoilers in the last book, the Sword of Gryffindor comes back. Same with something from Ravenclaw, and obviously now you have the goblet. That's awesome, though. That's really cool. All right, that is going to end off the reading segment of today's stream. But I will be back in a short while, probably about 10 minutes or so, with some Silk Song. We're going to silk it. We're straight silking it. We're straight silking that song. And yeah, so I hope you guys have a wonderful day, night, evening, wherever you are. To those of you who aren't joining in for Silk Song. And I will see you guys later. Adios. Take care.